My name is Ben Campbell. I am a coach specializing in social and dating matters, mostly for men. This is a show called Off the Cuff, where I answer questions in a question and answer format. If you want to submit a question, you can go to discord.gg/self-improvement, or there is a link down in the description if that vanity link ever changes. I am joined today by my friend and former client, Anton Toya. Anton, say hello.
Hello, guys.
And Anton's going to be asking the questions today because he knows me very well and he's very good at getting me ranting on certain topics. Would you like to begin?
Yes, no problem. So my first question is one I'm asking because when I first started, I had this question all the time in my head, and I think it could be of value for the community.
So do you want to wait before you begin? Since you're saying this is something that you started with, do you want to give a little bit of history? We haven't done that in a few streams, I don't think.
Oh, like how I came into the community and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was like around 5 years ago that I basically joined the community, and at first I was a bit lurking on like the topics, looking into the chats, and then you separated from the old community and I followed you and I took a boot camp with you in Varna for 2 days. And that's basically where like I put all the theory into practice and basically my life changed. So
yes,
I basically
sorry, and you go.
Go ahead. Oh, I was more like I was living in alignment with my thoughts, and it's a completely different life right now for me.
So Anton's been working with me for 5 years, 4 years, 5 years. And he started at the previous company that I worked for and then joined me when I moved over to start this one. And he's gone. So I'm a social and dating guy. I help you get over your fears, start to speak to people in a more authentic and grounded way and overcome your like social anxiety, get to a place where you're confident and competent speaking to other people in social situations so that you can get to the point where you're making friends, getting dates, that sort of thing. And Anton has gone from someone who was completely incapable of doing that to now someone who's one of my best friends and is traveling around and doing crazy things and dating lots of girls and having lots of fun and has no problem making friends or any of that stuff. So you're saying this is a question that you used to ask yourself a lot back in the day and you'd now like me to answer it for other people. So on you go.
Yes, I was having like so much social anxiety, and I always said like when I wanted to talk to people that I was not good enough to be around those people or even talk to those people. And I would say the question is, what are some practical steps people can take to get over this mental construct?
So the idea that you're like not good enough for other people.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is something that comes up a lot, especially because in the sort of, especially in the dating sphere, because I consider myself a social coach, but most of the advice that I end up giving is for young men who want to get dates, because most people that want to improve their social skills, they're doing because they want to chat up girls, right? At least in the young men in this niche. And it comes up quite a lot that people are watching a lot of like pickup content or red pill content or things that are centered around value structures. And so I was having a conversation with a guy about this very recently, actually, in DMs. And his thing, he might become a client at some point. And if you're watching this, hello, you'll know exactly who you are. And his thing, he's like, oh, well, you know, I'm not attractive enough, and I'm seeing all these people, and it's like I don't have money, and I'm not a full-time citizen here, and I don't have this, and I don't have that. And he's watching like Fresh and Fit and like listening to Dan Bilzerian and like a bunch of these people that live in a world that's heavily value centric. And my point to him, and it's the same point that I give to this, is that real, like, whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it's a friendship, the three most important factors are always going to be the same. These are chemistry, compatibility, and connection. And chemistry is and we've talked about this before, but I'll reiterate. Chemistry is the ineffable thing. It's the like raw magnetic attraction. It's the feeling that you get when you spend time around someone. It's often literally chemistry. It's like a pheromonal signal that you're picking up from people that makes you attractive to them, makes you attracted to them, makes you want to spend a lot of time around them. And that you can't really control. It's either there or it's not. Compatibility is the level to which you guys work together, and your personalities are at a level where you can spend time around each other without causing problems. And compatibility can change whether you're looking for a friendship or a serious relationship, a marriage, a co-working relationship. Like, the level of compatibility you require and what that actually means is going to be different for these different things. And then the final thing is connection, which is something you build over time. And the connection is the degree to which you share an emotional understanding with each other, the degree to which you're capable of being vulnerable with each other, the degree to which you understand how they think and feel about things, and vice versa. And the more that you understand how the other person thinks and feels about things, and vice versa, the more connection you're going to feel with them, and the more time you're going to want to spend around them, granted that you're also compatible and you also share some sort of chemistry, right? And so the issue that I see with all of this shit, and all the red pill stuff and all the pickup stuff and all of that, is that it places everything into a value system. And it's like, my value is dependent on the amount of money I make, and it's dependent on my looks, and it's dependent on all of this bullshit. And you can play the game at that level if you want to. And a lot of these guys do, like, you know, fucking Fresh and Fit and all these people. They live in that world. And because this is quite a bold statement I'm going to make, these people do not have anything real to offer beyond their money and their status and things like that. And this is how you start to get into red pill ideas around like hypergamy and like, you know, women will just trade up to the next best thing as soon as they can and all of this bullshit. And the reason that those ideas exist is because if you're playing that game at that level, and if the thing that makes you attractive to other people is your money and your looks and stuff like that, there's no real depth to the relationships that you create with people. And of course, you're going to be attracting people that's what they care about. And if you're dating women that care about money and care about looks and care about these like typical value things, of course, as soon as something better comes along, they're just going to take that, because there's nothing real connecting them to you. Whereas if you do things my way, and you do things the way that I suggest, the relationships that you end up forming are not based on these superficial things. They're based on who you are as a person and your level of connection to this other person. And this idea of value and like, I'm better than them, it's completely out the window when you look at things in terms of compatibility. And you'll have compatibility with people no matter where you are in life. Like you could be fucking homeless living in a tent, as I have been in the past, and still have friends and women around, because you've refined your personality to the point where you know who you are and you know the kind of people that fit around you, and other people can sense that. And so you become a sort of magnetic person to the right kind of people, and the wrong kind of people are completely repelled out of your life. And then once you learn how to actually form a real connection with somebody, and you're not held back by your insecurities and the things that you perceive as flaws and stuff like that, because it often is like if you think, oh, I'm not good looking enough, or I don't have enough money, or I'm not going to have success in this and that way, you will struggle and you will fail and you won't get success. But it's not because you lack those things, it's because your perceived lack of those things alters the way that you act around people, and alters the kind of like how you feel about yourself is how other people are going to treat you, especially when you're coming at it from this compatibility level. So circling back to your question, if you don't feel good enough, if you think that your value is too low or whatever, you're looking at things from the wrong perspective. You're looking at things from the perspective of, I need to have things in order for people to like me, rather than I need to find people who are compatible with me, and understanding that those people will just like you, right? Because people like things that are compatible with them. People like things that fit into their life. They like things that confirm their worldview and all of this stuff. And you can talk about value in terms of like, are you socially competent? And are you the kind of person that can handle yourself in a relationship? And are you the kind of person that people enjoy being around? And the good news is these things are not external factors. These are things that you can fix, right? So if you're not confident, you're not charismatic, you can't talk to people properly, as I can attest to, as Anton can attest to, as hundreds of people that I've personally worked with, and that the previous company that I used to work for worked with. That's a bit of a tongue twister. As we can all attest to, you can go from being socially awkward, weird guy that doesn't know how to talk to people, to person that people enjoy being around because you're socially competent and people like your energy, right? And would you agree with that?
Like this was exactly me. Like, I couldn't even look people in the eye at my work. I couldn't speak to girls, and now I'm like a social magnet at my work. Whenever I go, people want to be around me and stuff. It's such a big difference.
That's I'm really happy to have seen you come this far as well. But what was your like mental process back then when you're talking about the times that you couldn't really lock eyes with people or talk to people properly? What was your opinion of yourself at that point?
That I wasn't good enough for.
Exactly. because you get this external experience that, oh, people don't like me, people don't like talking to me, and so you think, well, I must not be good enough for people, and then you start to internalize that, and then you start looking for examples as to why. But as your inner capability changed, and as your mentality changed, and as the way that you started treating people changed, how do you now feel about yourself?
Like, I'm so sure about myself. Like, amazing self-esteem. That's what I have right now. I know if this person doesn't like me, I don't care. I really don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I have so many friends now that I'm a living proof of that I'm a good person. So
Exactly.
it's internal self-belief right now.
Yeah. And the two go hand in hand. Like the inner talk and the way that you perceive yourself affects the results that you get. And the results that you get affect the way that you perceive yourself. And it's a big fucking spiraling thing. We've talked about this before, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. And there is a post in the community about this. It's called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. And then there's another one about like using conscious affirmation to like change your thought patterns. But it essentially goes into how everything sort of works. And especially in personal development, everything works in a sort of, I visualize it as like a triangle moving in a spiral towards the direction that you're going in. And it's your thoughts, the things that you think and believe, which create your actions, which are the things that you go out into the world and do, and the way that you behave, which create your results, which then filter back into the way that you think. And if you can understand this process, this like triumvirate fucking process, you can change anything about your life. Right? Because it really all comes down to the way that you perceive yourself and what's going on in your head. And going back to talking about these guys that are like, oh, I don't look good enough and I don't have enough money and stuff like that. It's like, are these disadvantages? Absolutely, yes. We live in a world where people are kinder to people who look better, and they're kinder to people who are more intelligent, and they're kind like, the world will treat you better if you have these external markers of success. But if that's all you're basing your relationships on, you're going to have really shit relationships, and you're going to be constantly around people that you can't trust because you're playing the game at that level, and you're looking for people that's what they care about, right? Which is not all people. And a lot of these pickup guys have this mentality that it's like, women only care about money and looks. And it's like, can you find those women? Yes, absolutely. Will you find those women if that's the game that you're playing? Yes, absolutely. And it'll just validate your worldview that women are shitty and can't be trusted. If you're playing at the level that you and I and everybody else that we talk to plays on, which is forming a genuine human connection. It's like, you don't have to worry about women cheating on you and women leaving you for a guy with more money, because you're not meeting people that's what matters to them, right? Because you're interfacing with people on a much deeper level. And point B, I've completely fucking forgotten about. I guess it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
The looks and the things like that, they are a disadvantage, but they are by far not the most important thing. And if you're the kind of guy that works on your shit and becomes someone who is socially competent and confident and knows how to ask for what you want and fixes all your internal shit, learns how to communicate on a better level, and learns how to talk about your like vulnerabilities and insecurities in a healthy way that doesn't push people away, which is a whole other topic, then you become the kind of person that even if you're not good looking, you still have a massive advantage over most men out there. Because I have plenty of female friends and I've dated plenty of women. Their number one complaint is not that they can't find attractive guys, and not that they can't find like dick, basically. It's that they can't find people. Like, everybody's fucking, they're like, there are no emotionally mature men. There are no men that know what they're fucking doing. There are no men that have their shit together on that level, and they're all just competing on well, if I just get big muscles and a car, then bitches will like me. And they're completely like emotionally repressed, and so they get into bad relationships. And then you get this whole thing, I know I'm rambling right now, but one final point. You get this whole thing that a lot of guys are like, oh, why do women only date assholes? It's like, it's not that they want to date assholes. It's not that they want to date guys that are shitty people. It's that assholes, right? Guys that are very like aggressive and confident and all of this stuff tend to be the kind of people who are assertive and straightforward and like can be predicted in some way, and they're confident and they're assertive, and they give women what they're looking for from men, or what a lot of women are looking for from men. It's not that they want to date assholes, it's they can't find good men with these qualities, right? So they date assholes because that's what's available. So if you're a good man with these qualities, if you're assertive and confident and you know what you want, you know how to talk to people, and you're friendly and like you hold space for people and you have good energy, you're the top 1%. And it's really not that hard to get there. You just need a little bit of faith and the ability to believe that you can develop self-confidence, and that the things that you think are holding you back, like the money and the looks and all the bullshit external value stuff, don't actually matter, right? Because they don't. You just think
crazy
they
how,
do because that's what you're seeing, right? That's the people that you're looking at interfacing. And I feel sorry for these people like the Fresh and Fit and all that live there. It's like they've been caught like fucking paying women to have sex with them and all this, and then they talk about how like women are crappy, and it's like if you live in that world, you're just surrounded by shitty people, and if you're playing on that value system, you're meeting people that are just not good for you, you know? Anyway, sorry, I've been rambling. On you go.
yeah, it's so easy to become like in the top 1%, I feel. Whenever I talk to the average dude about dating, like
Yeah.
they all try and like sneak and like make ways around and not being honest with the girls. And
Yeah. Yeah, because they're
it's
afraid
so
of
simple.
rejection. They have their own insecurities and vulnerabilities, and no one is doing the work. No one's actually doing the work. Like there's people that are learning like fucking game, and this is where the pickup guys get it wrong. It's like they look at people who are successful in dating, these people that they call the naturals, right? And they look at those people and they go, well, if I just copy what he's saying and doing and the way that he acts, I'll get the same results. But what they're missing is that it's not what you're saying and doing that matters. It's the energy and the intention with which you're saying and doing it. So you can copy all of the behaviors of people that are successful, but unless that is authentic to you and that's how you should normally be behaving, people will pick up on that, and you'll filter for people that either know you're playing games with them or are insecure enough to be played games with, because it's not you. It's not you that's doing this. It's a fucking mask that you've put on. And you can say the same things and do the same things, but if it's not internally aligned, it doesn't fucking work. Because it is the energy that people care about. It's the way that you make them feel, and that's the bit that people are missing. And a lot of guys are like, well, I can't be emotional because then women will fucking leave me, because they've never learned the difference between healthy and unhealthy vulnerability and emotion. On you go.
And when you copy things that people say about like in a dating scene or like pickup lines, you will immediately feel that it feels wrong to say this.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a fun story on that.
It doesn't align with your energy.
Yeah.
And,
when I
also,
first sorry, on you go.
I was gonna touch on another point that you made. And I used to believe always, when I was like 5 years ago, I was an introvert. Because talking to people, it costs me energy.
Yeah.
But by being more honest and just like being more myself authentically, I now realize that I'm actually an extrovert, and I love talking to people, and I love being around people because they give me energy, and I'm finding the right people to be around. So it's like it's a huge difference.
That whole introvert extrovert thing, it might be a thing. My current understanding of that, and my theory about that, is that if you are the kind of person who is socially anxious and awkward and stuff like that, like you could call me an introvert on some days, you could call me an extrovert on others, because sometimes I recharge by spending time alone, and other times I recharge by spending time with people. And if I spend too much time alone, I start to want to spend time with people, and if I spend too much time with people, I want to spend time alone. And I used to consider myself an introvert, and then at times I was an extrovert. And I think it's just what you're used to. And I know I've said this before, but it's like, if you're the kind of person who is, as I say, socially anxious, socially awkward, and you find it difficult to hold conversations with people, you're probably the kind of person that when you're in a group of other people, you're in your head a lot, and you're thinking about what am I saying and what am I doing and how's that coming across, and that is tremendously mentally draining. But if you're like you and I, once you reach the point where you're socially competent, you know how to navigate these situations, you don't have to think about it as much, you can then just enjoy the flow of those things and not be worrying about it. And so then it becomes an energizing thing because you're enjoying socializing with other people. And so I think the introvert extrovert thing is kind of just a label that we've put on a box of behaviors, and those behaviors can and will change if you want them to. It's not like a thing that you're fixed for life. Oh, I'm just an introvert, so I don't like spending time around people. It's the result of what you're used to, in my opinion. And going back to the thing about pickup before I forget, because you're talking about like you learn that these things don't work after a while. The people that I feel the worst for are the guys that get into pickup and it does work, because it does work, but it works on a certain kind of people. And all of these people who get into pickup, they're constantly talking about, oh, this girl cheated on me and this one fucked me over, and like I knew a guy, and I said this in the pickup video, I knew a guy who dated a girl for a while, and she was like lying on him, cheating on him with her drug dealer, selling cocaine out of his apartment whilst he was away at work, and like all sorts of shit. And they all have these horrible stories, and it just further reaffirms the idea that women can't be trusted, because that's the kind of women that they're attracting with their behavior, right? And they're just like, all women are like this. It's like, no, all the women that you meet are like this because you behave in a way that attracts those people, you know? And when I first got into all this, when I was like because I got into self-improvement when I was 14, I'm 27 now, almost 28. And when I was about like 16, I started like using pickup stuff to go out to clubs and talk to people. I was like sneaking into nightclubs and stuff like that. And I remember this one, this was the like turning point for me, because I'd been using this stuff for a while and I had a couple of dates and stuff like that, but nothing was really working. And I'm really glad it didn't work for me, because I could have gone down that whole pipeline. But I remember I was sitting in it was this bar called Underground in Dundee, and you go down some steps, and there was, I don't know if it still exists, but it did back in the day. And I sat at the bar, and I had like a massive afro of curly hair back then. It was like a lot more. And this woman sitting on the corner of the bar says, "Oh, I really love your hair." And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, don't display too much interest. And so I go, "Thanks." And I just turn away from her. And in my head, I'm like, oh, that was the coolest shit ever. Like, she's totally gonna want you now because you're this bad boy that doesn't care, right? And in my head, I'm like, oh my god, she's so fucking hot. And yeah, right. I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes, and then I'm gonna turn back around to talk to her. Of course, when I turned back around, she was fucking gone. She probably went home to reconsider her life choices, you know. And that was when it clicked for me. I'm like, okay, maybe this shit isn't as good as people say it is. Because like that was something I'd read in a book, that like this is the thing that you do, like pretend you're not interested and turn away from them, and then turn back later and express a little bit, and then they'll like it creates like this mismatch, so they don't feel as good as you, and it's like this whole fucking disgusting world. But yeah, that was the turning point for me, thankfully, because if it had worked, I'd probably be one of these guys right now that's like sitting in a fucking room somewhere, still insecure as fuck, still never had worked on any of my stuff, talking about how I'd be like, oh yeah, but I've shagged 100 girls, and let me tell you the secrets, like none of them can be trusted, and women are children, and like all of this shit that they espouse. And it's bad. It makes me feel sorry for them.
Yeah, prior to working with you like 5 years ago, I used to watch some of the RSD content, and it left me feeling like I didn't know nothing. And they always gave like new content from like an hour and a half of lectures, and
yeah,
it was so complex. It was so complex. Like, and social situations are so easy. Like,
yeah.
you don't have to make it complex. You have to be direct and honest, and that's like the only thing you need to know.
I used to watch a lot of the RSD stuff as well, and some of the things that they talk about are like, some of it's good, and there's always like grains of truth to all of this. Like even in Red Pill, there's like some things that are like, okay, this is reasonable, you know. But most it's like under this, it's all half truths. It's all like it's all things that seem perfectly reasonable, and they do work to an extent, but it's like, as I keep saying, the kind of like, there's every kind of person in the world, and all of this stuff will apply to certain kinds of people. It's really about deciding what level do you want to connect with people on, and what kind of people do you want to attract into your life, because you will attract the people that are a mirror of who you are, right? And you'll attract the people that are most compatible with you. So if you're the kind of person that follows all this shit, and you believe that like women are children and immature, and like are just going to cheat on you as soon as they find another guy, and like all of this like hypergamy shit, those are the kind of people you're going to attract, because you're going to act in a way that is in alignment with your worldview, and you're going to attract those people because that's how you're behaving. What was my point about RSD? It's like, yeah, I mean, that the Owen or Tyler, I think his online persona was Tyler. His real name's Owen Cook. He is like self-admitted like super autistic, right? And he's a very intelligent guy. He's a tremendously intelligent guy, right? And he spent his life just like autistically fucking examining all of this and creating frameworks and all this stuff, and that's how his head works. And he had some success, and I believe, like, I've seen some of his stuff now, and a lot of those guys calmed the fuck down, right? And there was a period, and I remember, because I was working for if any of you want to Google, there's a guy called Sasha Daygame. His name's Alex Lazarev. He was Sasha Daygame back in the day. That's who I got into this business through. And he's gone down a crazy fucking spiritual path now. He believes he's God. He's like, I'm a spiritual person, but he's gone too far. And he's had a bit of like a psychotic period, basically. He's not right in the head anymore. But back in the day, he was like a big deal, and he was one of the first guys that was talking about like how to like meeting women during the day rather than going to bars and nightclubs, and not using like shitty pickup lines. And he was the first person that sort of like moved away from all that pickup stuff, and that was the guy that I worked for originally. And I remember sitting in Vegas with him at a poker table. And this was after the BBC did like an expose on pickup, and it was starting to like become a super mainstream, like well-known thing. And Owen calls up him and rants at him down the phone for like an hour and a half, going, "We need to change our business models, like they're coming after us, our businesses aren't going to survive, we got to like change everything up." And so he's like very business minded. He knew exactly what he was doing, and that's why they were so fucking successful. I think a lot of their business model back in the day basically revolved around, like, they did all the free tours and stuff like that, and they'd give enough information to make you feel like you were learning something, even if it was all just like it's all like, you don't need to think about things this much. Like, you're not wrong with all the stuff you're saying, but you're being obsessive about it. Like, you do not need to fill your head with all of this shit to be successful, and in fact you'll probably end up worse if you do, because you're just all up in your head thinking about stuff all of the time. And like the reticular activation system, which is actually a good thing to think about, but that applies to like other areas of self-improvement as well. You can use that to like change the way that you perceive reality and stuff, which is very cool. Like, all that stuff's cool. But like, yeah, just obsessively thinking and talking about like all of the pickups, and then your value systems and all of this shit, right? And they have pivoted now. Like, you see him, there's Julian, who back in the day was getting like a bunch of just sexual assault allegations and things like that, and he was a really fucking shady guy. And like, all of those RSD guys have now pivoted into like general self-improvement. And the thing is, a lot of the stuff they're talking about now is actually really good. Like, if you ignore like the dating and the pickup stuff, a lot of the stuff that like Julian's gone into like trauma release and stuff like that, and he seems to be doing a really good job. Like, I've watched some of the content, I'm like, I can't disagree with any of this. Like, that, you know, this all seems pretty legitimate. And so I'm trying to figure out in my head, it's like, because I do believe people are capable of change, and I believe people are capable of becoming better people and all of this stuff. And but the question I'm asking myself, because I knew how they were back in the day, because I spent time around them, and I saw how they operated. It's like, are you actually better people now, or is this just another form of grift? Like, even if you're giving away good information, what are your intentions? And I'm struggling to decide whether they have actually like changed their ways and they've become good people, or if this is just the way that they make money now, and they've decided that giving like the best information, all of that stuff, is actually the. I mean, and to be fair, I think in their minds they were giving the best information back up in the day, even though it was pickup spend. So I don't know. I'm trying to decide where I sit on that moral spectrum about how these people are. But they seem to be doing fine things now. They seem to have moved out of the seediness and into like genuine self-help, which is cool. Yeah.
I haven't seen them in quite some time, but I'll take a look into them as well.
I don't know. I suppose I'm not really like super invested in watching them. I've seen like a few things here and there, like little clips and stuff. So I'd need to watch it properly to come to a proper conclusion, I guess. Yeah. But like, fucking you want to talk about RSD? I hope I don't get like I think I'm too small at the moment to be sued over saying shit like this. But there was I never personally saw this, but I know people who worked with them, and apparently they were running a thing at one point where they were like charging, I think it was $10,000 to go out on a boat with like a bunch of models, and basically they'd hire like women from like Eastern Europe and Ukraine and things like that, and take them out onto a boat and charge clients like 10 grand to go out on the boat. And basically the implication was, you're stuck on a boat with all these hot women, and there's like, 5 women for every one guy. At some point you're gonna fuck one of them, right? And they were a bit like, I don't know if the higher ups were really involved in this. It was like what was the guy's name? I can't remember his name, but they were all, basically they were just using it as like we'll get guys to pay us money, and then we can hire all these prostitutes basically to fuck us on a boat. And it's like they were just using desperate guys to give them money to go on a yacht cruise and shag Ukrainian models. And it's like, that's not helping people, you know? Like, what has this become? We'll teach you how to pay women to fuck you. It's like, come on, man.
Another question I had written down. I don't know if it's your field of work, but I was listening at the beginning of a podcast about it recently, and I was curious on your opinion about it. How do you deal with like just needless worrying? What I mean with this is, like, if you think about something in the future, something that's going to happen, and you just have you just like worrying the same thing about it, it gives you anxiety, and you don't create any positive solutions towards the thing coming.
Yeah, overthinking, so ruminating.
Yes.
Anxiety.
Do you think meditation could have positive benefits on this particular issue?
Yeah, so I mean, I had someone come into the server recently actually and ask me about like overthinking and stuff, and it's I find it difficult to answer because it's such a personal thing. Like I don't have the secrets to stop overthinking. Let's just start with that. But I used to, I mean, I think I am thinking all of the time. I have a brain that does not fucking turn off, as you can attest. I remember us walking down the street in Sofia, and you're like, "What are you thinking about right now?" I just talk about like 5 different things. And you're like, "Oh, it must suck to be in your head, right?" I'm thinking all the time about it, but it's, you know, it's why I'm good at this, because sometimes if I get obsessed about something, I start figuring out problems, and then I get, you know, put them into practice and develop an area of expertise like this. And I think if I wasn't that kind of person, I wouldn't be doing this right now. And so I'm glad that I am. But I used to have a lot of anxiety and ruminate on things and like focus on the negatives in life and stuff. And so I can't really tell you how to stop overthinking, but I can tell you how to change I think it's less important to worry about how much you're thinking. Also, you do need to learn how to switch off and like relax, obviously. It's more important to worry about where your area of focus is. So if you're the kind of person that's constantly focusing on your problems, not only are you more likely to just have more problems, but your life just fucking sucks, right? If you're just thinking about bad things all the time, that's a horrible existence. And like the way that you perceive the world is, and the way that the world perceives you as well, is entirely down to the things that are going on in your own head. Like everything gets filtered through our senses, through our eyes and ears and all that stuff, and filtered through our subconscious into the conscious, into what you consider to be your perception. But your mind is taking in absolutely fucking everything. It's like if I put you in a room with a bunch of different colored things and I tell you, right, close your eyes. When you open your eyes, I want you to intensely focus on all the red things in the room, and I'm going to get you to name me 10 red things. And then you do that, and you open, and then you close your eyes again. I go, okay, name me something blue. Most people couldn't do it because you're so focused on the red things. So if all you're focused on in the problems are the problems in your life rather than the solutions or the things that you want, you're going to end up just living in a world of problems. And the way that you overcome this, and you're asking about meditation, I think that meditation is a wonderful tool. Like people think about it as like, oh, if I meditate for a long time, I'll just learn to stop my thoughts. And I think that's a sort of confused perspective on things. I'm not an expert in meditation. I do it on and off for a couple of months at a time, and I do find it tremendously helpful, but not in that it makes me think less, in that it gives me more control over where my area of focus is. And because most people sit and they're like, oh, well, I was just thinking about stuff constantly. It's like the point is, at least in the forms of meditation that I do, the point is that you are taking your point of awareness and you are sort of forcibly keeping it somewhere. And so if thoughts come through your head and you start following them, you just remind yourself, oh, no, bring it back to the breath, or bring it back to the point on this wall. And the point is that you are training your point of awareness to be where you want it to be, rather than allowing your thoughts to take you everywhere. And once you learn how to do this, or if you develop sort of a sense of meta-awareness, which is the just like taking a step back from your own conscious process and observing it rather than identifying with it, you can learn over time to have more control of your thoughts. And it is really up to you. Like if you're the kind of person that's thinking about negative things all the time, you have to understand that that is you that's doing that to yourself. And you can come up with all sorts of wonderful reasons as to why it's important to think about these things. And especially people with anxiety, they often ruminate about stuff because it's like their brain's like, oh, there's danger here, so I'm going to think about the danger obsessively so that maybe I'll avoid it, right? But really, you just draw yourself closer to it. It's like worrying I can't remember who said this. I think it might be one of the Stoics. Because worrying is paying interest on a debt that you don't have yet, right? And so to overcome overthinking, I would suggest, again, I'm not an expert in this area. It's not, as you say, it's not my field of expertise, but I would suggest, as someone who has done it and become someone who has a much better headspace, deliberately and forcibly work on your thoughts and refuse to identify with and refuse to follow thoughts that don't serve you, and start replacing the thoughts in your head with things that do. And over time, like this might take a few months, but you will find that you start to become someone who thinks in a much better way. And again, if you go to that post that I talked about, it's in discord.gg/self-improvement, or there's a link down in the description if that vanity link ever changes. There's a free post. You can read it absolutely free. You go into the behavioral section. There's a post there called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. And it talks about how the things that you think and the things that you believe affect your external reality and vice versa. And then there's the second one about affirmations, which is, I guess, more important to this. And it's like you can like start telling yourself all the things that you want to be true, right? And this doesn't work in like, oh, I'm a fucking space wizard. That's the example I gave in the post. It's like, you might believe that if you tell yourself that enough. Like, you might to start to believe that you're a space wizard, and you might go a bit psychotic, but you won't actually be, right? So it's best to focus on things like, I am happy, I am a positive thinker, I am the kind of person that gets things done, I am disciplined, I am motivated. And the more that you tell yourself these things, the more likely they are to become true, because who you are is simply just a result of the things that you think. The way that you act and the things that you believe and the way that you carry yourself in the world is entirely created by what's going on in your own head and your self-perception, which is often created by your experiences and created by things that happen to you and all of this stuff. But you can forcibly change that. You can decide, no, I want to be someone else, and over time make yourself that person and change your personality and the way that you behave and all of this stuff just by telling yourself a different story about who you are. Because it's like, what's the difference between a disciplined and motivated person and a lazy bum, if not what's going on in their head? And you can talk about other factors like brain chemistry and stuff like that. And to a certain extent, these things are either impossible or very difficult to change. Like if you're someone who has naturally less dopamine, you're a bit ADD like me, it's much harder to make yourself sit down and do work and stuff like that. But you still can change for the positive by telling yourself that you're motivated and doing the work to actually follow through with that every day. And so circling back to your question, because I've just been rambling here, with overthinking, I can't tell you how to think less, because I still struggle with that, but I can tell you how to change the way that you think, and that's by consciously observing your thoughts, refusing to identify with thoughts that you don't want, and using affirmative statements like banished. You go, I banish this thought, I deny this thought, I reject that idea, right? Because if you say, don't think of a pink elephant, you're thinking of a pink elephant. So if you're like, no, don't think that, you're just going to think about that. If you go, I banish this, right? Just push it out of your head. That's an affirmative, like, get the fuck away from me kind of thing, and then replace it with thoughts that you want. So like if you're the kind of person that walks out, and this is one of the examples I gave in that post, if you're the kind of person that walks outside when it's raining and you go, oh, fuck, it's raining, this is terrible, you're going to feel miserable. Like you have just created a scenario in your own head that is making you sad. It's not the rain that's making you sad, it's how you think about the rain that's making you sad. So if you instead start to change that and you go, no, that's a shitty thought, I don't want to think like that. Rain's wonderful, it gives life to the earth, my skin's waterproof so it can't hurt me, like it makes the world vibrant and smell nice and the plants grow and it's a wonderful life-giving thing that we all need, right? Anytime you see the rain, you're then going to start to feel happy because you're like, oh yay, it's raining, look at this wonderful miracle that's happening. It's the same exact event, it's just how you are perceiving it is changing how you feel, right? Like you can't always change the way that you feel and how you react, but you can change how you react to things, and that has a massive effect on how you feel. So change the thoughts that are in your head. They're your thoughts, and again, I have posts on how to do that. Does that answer the question?
I think you nailed the answer. The question. Yeah, like something that this doctor that I was listening to the podcast about.
Oh, sorry. Was, before you go on, if this kind of applies if you're just like creating problems and ruminating about stuff and you just have like general anxiety and things that don't matter. If you have actual problems that you're ruminating on, don't ignore them completely, obviously. Like, you can't just be like, if I just ignore my problems, they'll go away. Fix the problems, but also fix the thing. Like, there's a certain amount of like emotional pain and like mental trouble that goes on when you have issues in your life, and that's healthy and that's okay. It's how you solve things. Like, these things exist for a reason. Like, sometimes you feel bad for a reason, sometimes you think bad things for a reason, and it is to highlight something that you need to address. But anytime it goes farther than the like necessary amount of experiencing that pain, then it's all self-created. Like, you might go through a breakup and you feel bad about that breakup and it's going to suck for a few months, and that's fine, that's healthy, that's normal. If it gets to the point where you're like torturing yourself and I'm completely unlovable and she was the one and like all of this stuff, and then like you're not going on dates later because you're like, oh, nobody's gonna like me, like, that's all self-created, and that's the shit that you need to work on. Yeah, I hope that's a reasonable distinction. Sorry, on you go.
Yes. So the doctor I was talking about the podcast, the first thing he told me was so everybody does it and you cannot stop it. So, and you went on further with replacing it with a positive mindset. And then the second point he made was that actually worrying makes you a good person, because it shows that you actually care about something, that you have something good going on into your life.
For
example, if you worry about your kids dying, then it's a good thing because you feel responsible for your kids, and you want your kids to have the best possible life.
That's an interesting distinction, and yeah, he is right. But it's an interesting distinction that you're making about because a lot of people that worry and a lot of people overthink will automatically treat that as a negative thing, and then that will cause a negative experience for them. Whereas if you, it's like, you know, there's a certain amount of healthy pain, there's a certain amount of healthy anxiety, there's a certain amount of healthy negative thinking, right? Like life is not all positive; it is equal measures good and bad, and you get to choose what to focus on. But sometimes you're going to experience some bad things, right? And if you're worried about your kids dying or whatever, and that makes you protective, as long as you're not ruminating on that constantly, it's like if you're just constantly thinking about your kids dying, what a terrible existence, right? But if you're like, there's a bus coming, about like there's a certain amount that is healthy that is there in order to protect yourself and the people around you and your own mental headspace and all that stuff. So that's a good point. That's a good distinction. It's not like not all negative thinking and all negative emotions are bad, you know.
Yeah, for example, like something that I'm worrying about, like I'm having a fight soon. And of course, like I will worry about this.
Anton's a professional
normal
kickboxer for those people that don't know.
And it's totally normal, and I should, you know.
Yeah.
But
here's the thing. In
the fight.
Sure. Well, it might to an extent. Like, is it better? Like, yes, some amount of like, what if this guy beats the shit out of it? Like, you got to be aware. There's I think there's a difference between worrying and being aware of like potential consequences. Because it's like if you're aware of the potential consequences, you feel a little bit of anxiety. That motivates you to train harder. It motivates to find your opponent's weaknesses. All of this stuff. But if you're worrying, that at some point, I don't know where that line is, but at some point it crosses the line from this is helpful to this is unhelpful. And when it's unhelpful is when it starts getting in the way of your training, gets in the way of your capability, and gets in the way of you being able to actually prepare for this thing.
Yes, basically you can worry about the things you can control, but whatever you cannot control, like let it go.
Yeah. Like if you're like, oh shit, the Vikings are coming, grab the torches, grab the axes, let's start defending the village. That's one thing. If it's, oh shit, the Vikings are coming, I'm going to crawl into a ball and wait for death. Like that's a whole different thing.
Exactly. And then something also you touched on is that basically worrying is human nature, because as humans we evolved in a good way because of worrying, you know, like because we always see the problems in things. But don't forget to be grateful about things. Like even if this fight goes wrong, I'll still have amazing friends. I'll still go to work. I have good relationships with people. I have fun hobbies to do. There's so many good things that I tend to forget while worrying.
Yeah.
You cannot forget those.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good to remind yourself of being grateful.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
The example of the rain, like it's something I'm going to use because I used to have like problem with when it was raining. I used to tend like be negative about it.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Scotland. It's raining 70% of the time there, so you got to get used to it. Otherwise, you're just miserable. and I always go back to like good thing skin's waterproof, you know. Good thing I'm not going to melt or soak up like a sponge.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, so another question I wrote down here. We've been talking about procrastination behavior and how it's like one of the main reasons is an initial stress response towards the thing you have to do. But what about like the small things? Like, for example, if you have to do dishes or write this small email, then my initial thought is like, yeah, I'll do it later.
Yeah.
And
well, I still think it's a stress response. Like it's you're thinking about the day. Like the reason you're going, oh, I'll do it later, is because it's mentally easier than acknowledging the fact that you have to push through a little bit resist. Like procrastination is basically the only thing people think about, oh, I don't want to do the task. Really, you don't want to get started on the task, because once you're started, it like everything becomes easier once you just initiate things. And I should know because I'm a really bad procrastinator, right? But I found things that work. And if they work for me as someone who is really tremendously difficult to motivate, then they should work for other people, you know? But yeah, we've talked about before the procrastination being a stress response. Like people think, oh, I'm lazy, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that. I think what's actually happening is there is a certain level of mental resistance that comes when you think about doing a task that you don't want to do, that doesn't give you any immediate form of enjoyment, right? There's a certain amount of mental resistance that comes with that. And so to combat the mental resistance, you come up with excuses and reasons or diversions. So you either go, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then that fulfills, that like gets rid of the bit of your brain that's like, oh, I need to do this. You're like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then your brain's like, okay, cool. And then so it simultaneously relieves the bit of you that's like, the little bit of resistance that's there, and allows you to do something enjoyable in the present. And the way that you get over that is to learn that doing things like this is a normal and healthy part of life, and you're gonna have to overcome resistance, and that's how you build discipline. And that's like the most successful people in life are not the ones who have it easiest. They're the ones that know how to push past a little bit of difficulty, and over time that does get easier. And it's just training your mind to be like, fuck, this sucks, fine, fuck, fine, and you just do it, right? But then the second part is the thing that we've talked about before with like overstimulation. Like if you wake up and like some I know some people, like my friend Slade, he can like fucking watch Instagram reels or whatever and then just get to work because he has enough of that, like whatever that brain power is. And there's certain areas of the brain that are associated with this, and part of it's like a dopamine thing, part of it's I think it's called you don't quote me on this because I might be wrong, but I think it's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And this is like a muscle in your brain that is part of I think, don't quote me on this, I think it's part of the prefrontal cortex, which is a part of your brain that like exerts, it's like the brain's control mechanism. It like when you feel an impulse to do something, that's the part of your brain that fires up to restrict that impulse. And the more that you do that over the time, the stronger these parts of your brain become. And some people are born with an incredibly strong, like this area that's just, they're really good at controlling their impulses and making themselves do things that they don't enjoy. And then other people have like a legitimate genetic disadvantage where their brain's just like fucky and doesn't have that control system as well, right? But whoever you are, you can still build this up over time and get like it's like if you're bodybuilding, right, and you're a person with shit genetics and slow twitch muscle fibers or whatever, and you're competing with someone that just naturally, like, they just look at a weight and they gain 50 pounds, right? You're never going to reach the same extent that those people are. You have to acknowledge that you do have a genetic disadvantage, but at the same time, you can still put on a lot of muscle and become a much better version of yourself. And I look at the brain power thing the same way. It's like I have mad fucking ADD. I'm very hard to motivate. I have a shitty brain, right? And in some ways, it's wonderful and it works for me because it's made me obsess about certain things like the coaching and this, and it's like, because I can only really do things that trigger that give me a lot of stimulation, and this is one of them, which is wonderful. Like if I, maybe I would have been in a fucking office had I been born like my friend Slade. So I'm happy about that. Someone says, "Hey bro," in the chat. Hello, thank you for joining. Shivraj Bapkar. It's dangerous for me to be calling out names like this. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Anyway, yeah, the brain power thing. It's like if you, what was I even talking about? This is one, I'm just completely distracted now. There we go. So I've been derailed. Oh yeah, willpower. It's like you wake up in the morning with a certain amount of willpower, and if you're like me, if you're the kind of person that does not, which most people that are looking into like how do I stop procrastination, like for most of you, this is you. Like if you're the kind of person that has either atrophied that part of your brain over time or just has like a genetic disadvantage. He says love from India, thank you. Love from Bulgaria, and Scotland. If you're that kind of person that has that kind of disadvantage, like you got to work with yourself. It's like when you wake up in the morning, you have a certain amount of like you could refer to it as like a willpower reserve, right? Or like a level of stimulation that is your baseline. And if you do something that gives you easy, cheap dopamine, easy, cheap reward, and makes you feel good in an easy way, like watching a YouTube video or jerking off or anything like that, that it raises your level of stimulation to the point where anything beneath that becomes tremendously hard to do because you don't have the willpower to be like, this is hard, let me just do that. So if I wake up in the morning and I start like scrolling through Instagram reels, my entire day is fucked. Like there is nothing that's going to get me to start working that day. It's a write-off. It's gone. So I have to train myself, and it's like on the best days, it's like I just leave my phone off till like 10 a.m. and I just immediately, like I get up, I take a fucking cold shower or an ice bath, and I just start working because that's how I actually get shit done. Because at that point, the level of resistance, because the level of stimulation for like writing a post or like doing some research on something is like down here. It gives me very little stimulation. But if I'm waking up here and the stimulation's here, it's fine. I can still do that. There's very little resistance. If I wake up and I start looking at Instagram, or like looking at reels or whatever, the stimulation's way up here. And so I'm just jacking up the level of stimulation. And then from that point, because I'm not here anymore, I'm up here. If I want to do something down here, it's fucking impossible. Is that my brain's just like, nah, we're not doing it, and it fights me, and it's stressful and all of this stuff. And so most people that complain about like procrastination or have problems with like discipline and all that stuff, it's because you are allowing things into your life that are more stimulating than the thing that you want to do. And I'm not one of these people that advocates for like, oh, you can't ever play video games, you can't do this and you can't do that. It's like, just don't do it before the thing that you need to do that day. Because when you sleep, it kind of resets, right? You spend 8 hours in a subconscious state, your body recovers, your brain recovers. It's like everything sort of resets. And so you wake up at a point where you're down here again, and then you can start work or you can start whatever. So I say, I just push all that stuff till 5 p.m. I can play video games, I can watch movies, I can jerk off, I can go socialize, whatever I want, as long as it's after 5 p.m. And on the days that I do this, I get a hell of a lot more done because I wake up and then I'm bored, and then doing work, it just becomes easy at that point because it's more stimulating than doing nothing at all. Yeah. The guy in the chat says, can you tell me how to manage relationships and study? Sure. I assume that you mean like finding a balance between these two things. Like, how do I balance having a relationship and studying a lot? And since you're from India, I'm going to hazard a guess that you have very strict parents that enforce a really strict study schedule on you. And so you don't feel like you have enough time or energy to manage both of these things. And I don't really have advice on that. Like, I can give a bit of productivity advice, but I have not been through that experience. And so anything that I say is just going to be opinion. But I can offer my opinion. Anton, you want to weigh in on this? how would you balance
I know nothing about Indian culture, so
okay, I didn't go to college, right? So and I barely passed high school, so I'm not someone who has ever had to balance relationships and study. I balance relationships and work, but that's because I segment, like I work on a good day, I work like 4 hours, so I have plenty of time for socialization and stuff like that. You went to university, right?
Yeah, I went to college.
Yeah, and you work in a school right now. How would you balance relationships and study? Or is it just not something you've ever had to really think about?
No, I have enough free time. I feel like I have to balance my sports, my work, and relationships, which is, I don't know, it's doable for me. I'm always busy though, so.
Yeah, so for the person that asked this question, I think this comes down to just a lack of free time, like or a lack of mental energy. And I would suggest at that point that you are dealing with factors that most people don't have to deal with, and perhaps it's a cultural thing or whatever, but you're probably working too hard. Like, there is an extent where you're working too hard, you're studying too hard. If you're struggling to like find time for relationships and stuff like that, you got to find a different balance. And if it's your parents that are enforcing this thing, like, I don't know how old you are or whatever, if it's a societal expectation, pull away from that. It's your fucking life. You can do what you want. You're going to be fine studying less. And in fact, people that obsessively study and study more and don't give themselves rest periods often end up performing worse in academic situations, because you're like, just like going to the gym and lifting weights and then coming out, your body needs time to rest. If you're studying and trying to put information into your head needs time to rest, right? And I've had this problem before, where it's like I'm just constantly walking around like listening to podcasts and stuff like that, and I'm just putting information into my head like 12 hours a day, and then I'm like, why can't I think properly? Why am I burned out? It's like, because I'm just like cramming information into my mind. It's like you need time to relax and rest, and so study less is my answer. If you don't have time or energy for relationships, study less. Okay, then suggest me about. Oh, sorry, on you go, Anton.
Oh, I was gonna have an open communication with your partner about this subject, like how much free time you want to have with each other.
Yeah, or your parents if it's them enforcing it.
Yes.
So again, if it's a cultural thing, if it's like something that you can't escape because there's other people that are in control of your life, can't really help you, unfortunately. You will get older and things will pass though. He says, okay, then suggest me about feeling down sometime and how to get rid of it. So it's like how to deal with negative emotions, basically. I don't know if you're in the Discord community already, but if you go to discord.gg/self-improvement, or if you go into the description of this video, there should be the link at the top. There is a post in there that answers this question exactly. And it's going to give you because we've talked about this on the stream before, and it's going to give you a much better answer than I can here. So if you go to the emotional forum, it's like the only way I need to fix that. I've finished the behavioral forum. I've done about half the posts in the social. I need to get working on the emotional forum. But it's called Dealing with Negative Emotions and Experiences. And it essentially explains how, A, sometimes it's okay to feel bad. Like feeling down sometime is not a problem at all. It's fine to feel down sometime. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's often the way that we react to this feeling that makes us feel worse and harms us more than the feeling itself. So first of all that, and then how to deal with like low periods in life, how to deal with pain and grief and all of these things. This is something I used to struggle. I used to be a very depressed, anxious person that would ruminate on things a lot, and you need to learn how to process negative emotions and not sort of push them down. So if you go and read that post, that'll answer your question a lot better than I can right now. I hope that's helpful. And then if you have any follow-up questions after you read it, we'll be streaming. I mean, the stream's going to end very shortly in a couple of minutes, but if you can either type in the free chat and I'll answer there, or if you come back in 2 weeks, because we won't be here next week, in 2 weeks time, I can answer it on the stream for you. I hope that's helpful. And if you're new, which I think you are, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you find this stuff helpful. And again, if you join the Discord community, there's a bunch of stuff in there that will also help you. It's all free. I do have paid services, obviously. This is my job, but there's free stuff there. Anton, anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I had like a few more questions.
Yeah, good time for one more.
One, I assume, which is like, what would be some tips on people who are way too agreeable? I used to be myself like this exact person, and back in the days, if my boss or my friends would say, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Even when I didn't want to do this, I would have said yes because I didn't want to step on their toes. But then by working with you, I gained much more self-esteem and self-belief. And it was okay for me to say no to people, and it felt amazing. But back in the day, it was impossible for me. So, but I think this is like more linked to the first question we talked about in this stream, to basically create this self-esteem about yourself, correct?
Yeah. I mean, with work specifically, it can be more difficult because there's like job implication, but you have learned over time, like even in your work situation, they're not going to fucking fire you for saying no to doing something that's outside of your scope. And if they do, you should probably be getting a better job. This mostly, I guess, applies to social situations where people feel like they need to, like if the certain people are people pleasers, and they will do anything to go out of their way to make other people like them. And a lot of this, again, like you say, it comes down to self-esteem. It comes down to that you're trying to make yourself valuable to other people, not in who you are. And it's like, I'm a fairly genuine person. I like to give things to people. I like to do things for people. I like to help people, right? But there is a line where it begins to take things from you. And it's like, sometimes people will be like, "Hey, can you give me a hand with this?" And I'll just be like, "No, I'm busy. Sorry. Like, I got shit to do," you know? And some people just can't get past that barrier. So taking it away from a work specific thing and just making it like a generally social thing. Yeah, it comes down to realizing that your value as a person doesn't necessarily come from what you do for people. Because a lot of people live that life where they're just trying to do anything they can to make other people like them. And this isn't just with like acts of service, it's with everything. It's like they will change they'll alter their personality to be more agreeable with other people because they think, well, if more people like me, then more people like me, and that's good. When really it's the opposite of that. The greater number of people like you, the less each individual person will actually like you, if that makes sense. Like if you think of it like spreading yourself thin. If you are like a fully rounded, put together person, you understand who you are and you understand what other people are. So the guy asked something else in the chat. I'll address that in a second. It's distracting me. Like if you're the kind of person that's going around trying to please people and try to make other people like you, it creates a filter that just filters for middle of the road people. Like you're not well defined enough to have a strong level of compatibility with people, and so you just meet like wishy-washy people. Whereas if you're the kind of person that's like heavily refined, you know who you are and you know what you want, and you act in a certain way, and you don't try to please people, you just try to look for compatibility with people, you end up with stronger relationships and stronger friendships and much better connections because you're connecting on a level that it's like you're more refined as a person. There's more there to connect with. Whereas if you're just trying to be the person that everybody likes, nobody actually likes you. They just tolerate you. Does that make sense? I've explained this better before. I'm getting a little bit tired, but I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it was a very bold statement, but I fully agree on this. The more people that like you, was it that you said again? And then
the more people like you, the less each individual person actually likes or cares about you, because they're not actually connected with you. They're just tolerating you. You're just a person that's there, and you make much better friends and much stronger relationships by becoming the person that some people don't fucking like, right? Because the more, and it's like, don't be an asshole, or try not to be, you know? Like, some people think I'm a complete fucking asshole. And they're like, you come on too strong, you're too forward, all of this stuff. But then other people who have stronger personalities don't think that about me at all. And they're like, no, you're great, you're honest, you're straightforward, I really respect that. And I've had these conversations with different kinds of people in my life. And some of them are less, like, they have less strong personalities. And so because I have a very strong personality, they're like, you're dominating and you're this and you're an asshole. But then other people in my life with strong personalities, they love me. They're like, you're great. We can hold a great conversation. We can go back and forth. It's like, to them, they don't see that at all. And so like, obviously you should try to filter yourself and become like a good person, do good things, be nice to people and all this stuff. Like, don't deliberately go out of your way to be a dick, right? But understand that the more refined you become as a person, and the more you become authentic to yourself and how you feel and how you want to behave, the more you're going to meet people that don't like you. And that's okay. Because there's going to be just as many people, if not more, that love you for exactly who you are, because you are a refined person. And then they actually have things to identify on you with. Whereas if you're a different person to everyone you speak to, and you're just trying to filter yourself to other people, there's no challenge to that. There's no fun to that. You're just a wishy-washy. You're a non-person at that point. You're just an idea that floats around, melding itself to other ideas, which is weird. You know, don't be that. Be a person.
At the moment the moment you said this quote, I can immediately like see 6-7 people in front of me at my job who are like this.
Yeah, it's most people, because they're deathly afraid that someone isn't going to like them. And you can't ever make everybody like you. If you're trying, then nobody will either. You know, it's a losing game. Like, who do you know? Who can you remember that's one of these people that you're like, they're a great person. You know, I want to spend more time around them.
Yeah.
No one. There's fucking no one. It's always people that have strong personalities, that are well refined, that have something unique about them, that are the people that you want to spend more time with, because they're interesting, you know? The guy in the chat says, can I have no or something? And I don't understand what that means, because I didn't say no to you. If you're asking for my number, no, you can't have it, but I'm flattered. There is the Discord, though. There's a link in the description. You can chat to myself and other people there, and look at all the posts and stuff like that. I don't know what that question means. That's just how I'm interpreting it. Sorry, Anton, on you go.
I was saying that it was like, it must be so energy consuming for those people as well to live like this, because they have like a different persona with everybody around them.
Yeah, and I used to be that person. I'm sure you used to be that person as well. It is draining. Yes. And you're just like constantly worried about what other people think, and it's bullshit. Allow people to not like. I have a lot of people that fucking hate me. Good. Good. Fuck them. I have other people that love who I am. Yeah.
And also, like, back in the day, I used to even lie to people so they would like me, and then I had to like remember all the lies I told to people.
Yeah, you start making shit up, horrible. And then they're like, "Oh, you were talking about this thing," and you're like, "Fuck, was I? Who was I again? Who did I make you think I was?" This guy's deleting all of his messages in the chat, and that's weirding me out. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I think it's a good place to wrap up, unless you have anything else you want to talk about.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the wonderful stream. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Again, it's discord.gg/self-improvement. You can write a message that we'll answer in this on the next live stream. You can call in. I'm thinking as well that in future I might extend these and start like reacting to content and like looking at stuff that's in this sphere and like giving my opinion on it and stuff. If people are interested in that, you can also suggest things to react to. Because people send me videos sometimes and they're like, "What do you think of this?" And I'm like, maybe I should just do this on the stream. But yeah, we'll be back not next week, but the week after that on Sunday at 5 p.m. local to Sofia. Thank you for tuning in. I have been Ben Campbell. This has been the wonderful Monsieur Anton Toya. You do speak French, right?
Un petit peu.
Yeah, petit peu. I fucking French. Anyway, I'm gonna give this a minute before I click the stop button, because sometimes YouTube decides to be a cunt and just completely cuts me off. What was I singing before? Was it the girl from Ipanema? Elevator music. I really need to. I need to get my shit together and actually, because like a few of the live streams, they have titles and they have timestamps and all of that stuff, and I've cut them into clips and I've put the clips on a second channel. But like the past 15 or whatever all have the exact same name. They don't have timestamps. I also need to get. I've been working with I've been trying to create like AI music to make like intros and outros to this as well, and I'll put some like title cards so that I don't have to do this spiel at the end. I can just like give a Yeah, so in case, just give like a 30-second thing at the end where there's music playing and like information on what to do and where to go and all that stuff. I think that'd be cool. Anyway, I think I'll let this run long enough. Thank you all for coming. Ciao, ciao. And we are no